message will be given by Reverend Sakamoto.
Good morning. It's good to see all of you here this morning. On page, on page 26 in the service book, we would open up to page 26. This is a collection of readings from the Dhammapada. The Dhammapada are readings that have accumulated over the centuries. And there are a whole bunch of these Dhammapadas. And actually, if you look online, you can find these and how they're broken down into different categories. And I remember when I was in Dharma school, we used to read these together. And so some of these, really kind of stuck in my mind. None of those that stuck in my mind are in here. So, I was reading the wrong ones. But the Gatha book that we used when I was in Dharma school, it wasn't this service book, it was something else. So there are a very large collection of these Dhammapada sayings. And I thought maybe we'd try and read one of these this morning. So on page 26, Dhammapada number 5. And I'll read the portion that says leader, and then everybody else will read where it says everyone. Let's read the whole thing together, because there's meaning in both the leader's portion of it and everyone's portion. So let's read. We can all be leaders and everyone together. All right. So we'll begin then. All beings tremble before violence. All love life. All fear death. If you see yourself in others, then whom can you injure? Others seek happiness like yourself. Harsh words bring harsh words in return, and injury touches you both. Make yourself still like a broken bell. Why be proud of this frail body? Even the splendid chariots of kings have worn away. So also the body comes to old age, sickness, and death. Awaken to the wisdom which death cannot hurt. The ignorant man is like an ox. He grows in size, but not in wisdom. Sad is the man who in his youth wasted his time and learned nothing. Therefore, master yourself according to the Dharma. As the moon slips from behind a cloud, so the master comes out from behind his ignorance and shines for all the world to see. Why did I pick this one? It's the Dhammapada, again, are just kind of these thoughts of how do we see the world, how do we see one another. And they are instructions about how we might approach our involvement with the world. And they contain these ideas that are, of course, central to Buddhism. And impermanence is something that Dima was saying this morning in the Dharma school service that we see change out there, and when we hear change, we look outside and we think of the change that's going on outside, but it's also internal to our lives. And he used the illustration of the face of Amida Buddha, how the eyes are slightly closed, half closed, half open. It's not just looking outside with the eyes wide open, nor is it closed looking only inside, but it sees outside as well as within. And permanence is something that is taking place all the time. But we need to also think about, be mindful of what we are experiencing and what we're seeing. Not just go through one day after the next day, after the next day. To see things and to think about, to be mindful, helps us to deepen what we understand and experience in the world around us. So in this second to the last paragraph, The ignorant man is like an ox. He grows in size, but not in wisdom. Sad is the man who in his youth wasted his time and learned nothing. To waste your time doesn't mean that you've accumulated anything or you haven't accumulated anything, or you accumulated things that are useless as opposed to not accumulated anything at all. But the emphasis here is to what have you learned in the time that you've experienced all of these things. You can be wealthy but not have learned anything. You can be poor and have learned a great deal about our experience as human beings. And Buddhism, again, Buddhism is about the resolution of the difficulties that we experience as human beings. More and more, I become, I guess it's this pocket understanding of Buddhism. It's the Four Noble Truths and the Nembutsu that I keep closer now. Just the Four Noble Truths and the Nembutsu. All of what I've studied and what I've learned, whether it's accurate and correct or not, comes down to this very simple thing, the Four Noble Truths and the Nembutsu. The Four Noble Truths sets up, our experience, describes what we're about and what Buddhism is about. Our experience, is it one that is characterized by difficulties? And if it is, then Buddhism suggests that this is how you can resolve those difficulties. And in Jodo Shinshu, we understand how difficult it is to resolve those problems, but yet we understand through what Honen has taught and what Shinran has spoken about, that those difficulties that we experience, if we are mindful, are resolved by life itself. And that mindfulness allows us to see ourselves as we are, allows us to see our experience as human beings, knowing that the resolution of these difficulties are already taken care of. We can look more openly at our own lives. I was talking with our Padma, Sangha and Padma class this morning. An example that I gave them was, if you have a serious illness and you ignore the illness, you say, no, it doesn't happen. And it's difficult to look at that. If we ignore it, then we can't resolve it. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But when we're able to acknowledge it, then we can begin to move forward. Perhaps not cure, but at least recognizing that this is something that is a part of who I am. It is something, seeing things simply as they are. Not a matter of good or bad or right or wrong, but simply a condition that is a part of who I am. So the Four Noble Truths and the Nembutsu. The Four Noble Truths simply states our condition, our experience as human beings. The Nembutsu assures, and through that assurance, allows me to see who I am, allows me to see the difficulties and the source of the difficulties that I encounter. In this Dhammapada, it's a specific experience that it's talking about. All beings tremble before violence. Love life, all love life, all fear death. If you see yourselves and others, whom can you injure? It's that accumulation of information and experience that allows us to begin to see things as they are. We need to be mindful. We need to think about what we are experiencing, what we share with one another, how we engage the world around us. Again, in Jodo Shinshu, we simply recognize our inability to cultivate what is necessary to attain resolution of these difficulties. But we are also assured through infinite wisdom and compassion that moves us toward that resolution. Knowing that allows me to see myself simply as I am, allows me to recognize, acknowledge, to begin to allow myself to simply be, without having to have expectations or assumptions and have to do certain things in a certain way. I mean, we move through life in that way, we have to do certain things in order to succeed, or at least we feel that these are the things that we have to do, get done, and there are expectations that we got to fulfill. We don't go here, we don't go there, we don't do this, then things fall apart. And we have all of these things that we have before us that we have to take care of. And if we don't, things will fall apart. And yet, what Shakyamuni Buddha is talking about is as we engage in these kinds of activities, what is it that we're really involved with? What are we really seeing and experiencing? And what Shakyamuni Buddha would suggest. And again, it doesn't matter what we accumulate or don't accumulate, what we've managed to avoid or not avoid. It's that truth of our experience that Buddhism is speaking to. And so again, in that second to the last paragraph, the ignorant man is like an ox who grows in size but not in wisdom. Sad is the man who in his youth wasted his time and learned nothing. What's remarkable is that at any time we can turn that around. At any time we are able to begin to see things simply as they are. Especially in Jodo Shinshu, that already we understand that we are ignorant, foolish beings. Already we understand that I am an unenlightened person. It is that which begins this awakening to life simply as it is. These are Dhammapada, again, a collection. You can go online, you can look for, Google Dhammapada, and you'll find a whole collection in various categories. And some of the translations, and there are different sets out there translated by different people. Some of the sets are very complete. They include the original translations into Chinese, as well as the English translation. So you have an opportunity to compare, if you can, compare the translations. And it's a whole list of things that help us to look at what we are experiencing, that leads us to a better understanding of what our condition is as an unenlightened being, that the difficulties that we experience as human beings result from our inability to see things simply as they are. And in Jodo Shinshu, beginning to see that is the beginning of awakening. And we're able to look more carefully at who we are, our limitations and our finiteness, through the assurance of the vow of Amida Buddha that affirms and assures us as we are of the eventual experience of enlightenment. And it doesn't matter what our station is, what our abilities and skills are, we are able to find hope in our experience as human beings because of the promise of Amida that affirms and assures us as we are of the eventual experience of enlightenment. Okay, thank you very much.